Good morning, everyone. My name is Craig. I am a Microsoft Solutions Architect. So I cover anything from Microsoft 365 through to Azure. And it's quite nice to be talking about something a little bit different because the last 24 months has been all about AI, all about agentic AI. So I'd be amiss if I didn't mention AI in this presentation because it is certainly still a hot topic and certainly a topic with regards to security as well. And it's just something that we are seeing more and more of. And from a security lens, it's something that we really have to take serious with regards to how we're going to protect our environments. So just kicking off, there is a view of different environments within New Zealand around having various tools. Now, having various tools is not a problem and it's not an issue. It is certainly a decision that can be made. And there is pros and cons to either having it under a single vendor or having it under multiple vendors. And even if you had it under a single vendor, we still see problems around integration, getting the logs into a single pane of glass. And that is probably one of the things that we really look at from a security perspective is irrespective of the tools we're using, where are we sending that telemetry data and how are we actioning that telemetry data? Because if we manage this between different consoles, between different environments, there is a cost to that. And it's not a monetary cost, it is an incident response cost. So it's just something that we really got to consider around. We might have 2, 3, 4 different vendors doing a great job within our organization, but how are we bringing all that data together? How are we consolidating those alerts and making sure that we make the most of that telemetry data that we have to make the best decision? Because security has moved from a post-breach, it's certainly a lot of automation around it now. We're really trying to remediate while we sleep type of thing. And for us to be able to do that, we need really, really good data. And all that data that you're collecting, if it's collecting in silos, is going to ways where it could make a really good decision within your environment. So from a Microsoft perspective, we've got Microsoft Defender Suite, and it does everything from identity, which is still the main attack surface from a attacker perspective. So identities are still targeted on a daily basis. We've got endpoint detection. So this is your Defender for Endpoint or Defender for Business. If you are running in a business premium license, you have access to Defender for Business. And if you're running on E3 or E5, you have access to Defender for Endpoint. So think about this as your EDR on your laptops, on your mobile phones, etc. Defender also has the email and collaboration tooling that we have. So think about what you're doing for your web filtering, your URL rewrites, your safe attachments, that type of stuff. Defender for Office 365 is that play for that. There is a great tool, and I don't know how many of you use Defender for Cloud Apps, but I really think that this is a phenomenal tool for that shadow IT aspect. So think about this as a tool that's basically going to bring all of the applications that are being used within your organization, bring it to the forefront to let you know user A, user B are utilizing these applications. Do we want to sanction them or unsanction them? And how do we want to control how these applications are being used? And they've recently brought in an AI version of this as well, part of Defender for Cloud Apps, which I'll touch on in a little bit. Bringing all of this together, we then have the capability of pushing this out to multi-cloud. So there's not a lot of environments that use the likes of AWS, GCP, Microsoft Azure as a standard, because that is you need to be a pretty big company to use multi-cloud. But Defender for Cloud really does bring in all of those different platforms into a single pane of glass. And then the last one really is Microsoft Sentinel. So what Microsoft has made a decision around, and this is where they've taken the decision that they also want to move into that single pane of glass view. So previously we would manage Defender for Microsoft 365 in security.microsoft.com, and we would manage Sentinel in the Azure portal. So what Microsoft has made a call on is they are actually dropping the Sentinel portal now within Azure, and it's actually moving into the security.microsoft.com view. So by March, I think in March next year, we would have completely dropped the Sentinel view, and everything will be managed out of security.microsoft.com. And this is that approach, that single pane of glass that we're speaking about with regards to getting all that telemetry data into a single view for us to make those quick decisions. So just touching, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch on each of these in a little bit more detail, but more focus on the newer features that have come out. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are quite familiar with these products if you are utilizing them. But basically, we've got, from an identity perspective, we utilize Entra ID and Entra Suite. And what this does is basically protect the identity side of things. So think of this as the security portion for your identities, whether they are sitting on-prem, whether they are sitting in Microsoft, or whether they are sitting in a third-party identity provider. We can provide the protection for that. So with regards to Entra, so if you are a cloud native identity or cloud only identity, you will utilize the Entra ID piece of the security aspect around that. So think things like conditional access, things like privileged identity management that allow you to move or elevate your privilege based on certain rules. But if you are more traditional or more legacy and you are still utilizing domain controllers and those identities are sitting on-prem or elsewhere, we certainly can overlay the cloud technology over those on-prem identities as well, utilizing what is known as Defender for Identity. And basically what this is really trying to lock down that identity as much as possible. And this is why we have things like passkeys instead of passwords now. This is why we have things like just-in-time access, which gives us access to a specific resource just for that period of time that we want. So we really want to lock that in because the identity piece is always the first part that gets attacked. So from a Defender for Endpoint perspective, like I said, this is on the devices and within your phones. We've had machine learning across Defender for probably the last 5-6 years. So it's been quite a long time that we've had it. And it's just getting better and better. So when it first came out, I'll be the first one to say that we got a lot of false positives because of the ML heuristics that were there. But it really is getting a lot more mature. And every year we get better machine learning, we get better telemetry data. Microsoft's massive SOC that they have utilizing all of that data is just giving us a lot less false positives from that perspective. We talk about what is known as an attack surface reduction. So Microsoft took the decision to roll out specific baselines for all of your environments. You will probably find, if you are utilizing it, things like security by default is a baseline, or having conditional access policies that Microsoft manage. And this is really just trying to get every organization at a baseline of security so that we're all not starting from green fields and going forward. What's coming new, which is very cool, is predictive shielding. So predictive shielding is in preview right now, but I've been playing with it for the last couple of weeks and it's very, very cool. So what it does is it moves the needle from post-threat assessments into the pre-threat assessment. And what it's basically going to do is it's going to take all of the signals that we have within Graph, within Sentinel Graph, etc., and make a decision based on what that user's doing. So if we think about things like impossible travel, or if we think about things like why is this user copying data from this network to this network, that might trigger predictive shielding to happen. And what happens is it'll start blocking things like any group policy objects that get pushed down. So what attackers do is they'll basically log in, they might get access to your domain admin account, and they'll change your group policy object and push that down to all of your devices to make it easier for them to laterally move within your organization. What predictive shielding is going to do is it's going to say, okay, well, I see this is going to happen. I'm going to pause any devices to accept any new group policy objects for the next 2, 4, 8 hours, whatever it may be. So it's basically taking those preemptive measures to stop that attacker from applying things to your device until such time as it has been resolved. Similar with safe boot. So a lot of these attackers, especially the ransomware ones, talk about where they gain access, boot the device into safe mode so they can disable a lot of the security measures we have. And that's when they basically do the execution of that ransomware package. Similar with predictive shielding, we basically disable that safe boot. So that machine is not going to be able to boot into safe mode anymore to be able to be exploited. So very proactive measurements around, we're not sure if this is an attack, but we do feel that something is an anomaly. This is why we're going to kick in predictive shielding. So it is in preview. Have a look at it. It is a very, very cool feature that you can set up within your security.microsoft.com portal. Worth having a play with that. Autonomous remediation. This simply talks to, we can set policies around remediating for specific threats. So if we have a high threat, we might have data that's classified as top secret or highly confidential. If that's being copied out, we automatically remediate that user account, put it into a sandbox. They can't access that data anymore without anyone actually logging in and actually doing that themselves. So we really are moving into an automated remediation response. And this is all based on these telemetry data that we're receiving. And as I mentioned, we're getting stronger machine learning models. So the less false positives we get, the better. And as these machine learnings and these models are getting better, so are we getting them within the Defender. So from a mail perspective, or from an attachments and safe links perspective, Defender for Office 365 gives you that capability to do URL rewrite. So think about someone gets sent a link and they click on that link and it opens up the website. Instead of that just opening up the website, it basically opens up in a sandbox, does a check, and then provides you access to that website if it is safe. Very similar with safe links and safe attachments. If a link comes in via email, it'll do a check, or attachment comes in via email, it'll do a check. What it also has been expanded now is it's not only around email anymore. This is about SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams as well. Because we are engaging in different tools these days, we're not necessarily just using emails. The same technology is being applied across the board within Microsoft 365 now. So we can actually enable that, and it has to be specifically enabled for OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint. What's new there? Campaign info and file malicious campaign info. What this is doing is it's basically tagging all of the data around a campaign. So if we think of the big phishing campaigns that have happened around the world, I think Sony was one where they had invoices that they got scammed out of millions and millions of dollars. Those campaigns, we used to have to manage them on as they came in on a per campaign basis. Now that data that's being collected in a central repository, we can actually see all of the files that are affected or have been affected by that campaign, whether they're dormant or whether they're active. So it's basically collecting that campaign across all of your data, which is a very cool feature. Like I said, for Defender for Cloud Apps, fantastic for your shadow IT. This is something that I highly, highly recommend every organization have a look at. If you are utilizing another product, great, but if you're not managing your shadow IT, this is a really, really cool tool. And we now do shadow AI protection. So what that basically does is it will then tell you as an organization, Craig's using Perplexity, Craig's using Claude, Craig uses Kimi. This is how Craig is utilizing that. He's taking documents and copying them into Claude, whatever it may be. That is a risk from a business perspective, because as that data leaves your boundaries, you lose control of that data. So from a business perspective, we might make a policy saying, cool, we're going to use Microsoft 365 Copilot because it's ingrained in our tenants, and we're going to provide you that's the tool we're using. So as a policy, you cannot use other AI tools with our data. Defender for Cloud Apps is going to be able to manage that for you. You're going to be able to sanction or unsanction these apps. So even if the user tries to log in there or copy data in there, they're not going to be able to access that tool as a whole. And it does thousands and thousands and thousands of different apps out of the box, gives you ratings, does things like SOC 2 or ISO 27001 ratings against them. So it really is a powerful tool, and it's definitely worth having a look at. So certainly have a look at from a detection perspective, and then from a protection perspective, we can also now protect things like prompt injection. We can protect things by trying to overwhelm an agent to provide us information that we shouldn't have access to. So that is a common technique where we'll just spam so many commands to an agent that it basically gets overwhelmed. Whereas with Defender for Cloud Apps now, we are able to protect. So we are basically a layer in between the agent and the user orchestration side. So a really, really cool way of us making sure that we're protecting the agent from abuse as well. If you are a company that utilizes agents a little bit bigger than Copilot Studio or your agent builder within Microsoft 365 Copilot, you could be using something like Foundry, or you could be using AWS for your agents, or you could be using a third party for your agents. How are you protecting those agents against the likes of prompt injection? How are you wrapping policies around those? And Defender for Cloud and Defender for AI is what can do that. Because it is multi-cloud by default, we are able to wrap these policies around, scan them, scan the models. So if we're utilizing fine-tuned models or custom models, we are able to put those policies over those models as well. So Defender for Cloud apps for your Copilot Studio and below, anything above third party or within Foundry, I would highly recommend having a look at something like Defender for AI to achieve that for you. So Security Copilot and Defender has been an interesting one, because when it was first launched, it's a really, really cool tool. So what it does is it'll take all of these logs and it'll basically act as your security analyst. So you're prompted with natural language, ask it what happened. We've got devices that are all ransomware or whatever it may be, and it'll go and do the analysis for you and bring out the output saying, this is what happened. This was the first device that was compromised. This is what we suggest you do. Now, as excited as I was about this product, when I first started utilizing it, I quickly realized how expensive it can get. And the nice thing about that, and I'll touch on it in a second, is that we do now have capability or capacity bundled into that, and I'll touch on that in a second. But from a product perspective, it is a very, very cool tool. And what Microsoft has made a decision now is the first version of it was a single agent that would basically do all the analysis for you. Now we're starting to see these mini agents coming through from a security lens perspective. So I think phishing agent. Well, this is an agent that'll run through all of your logs on a schedule and look for any phishing attempts or phishing logs within your organization on your behalf. Identity, look for impossible travel, look for people that are trying to brute force attacks. There's a whole bunch of these agents run on your behalf. So we're seeing a whole bunch of these that are very finely trained to do certain tasks rather than have a single agent from a security perspective do that. So have a look at that, and I'll tell you how we can certainly drop that price a little bit in a second. I won't spend too much time on Sentinel, but basically, if we don't have that single pane of glass, Microsoft's solution is Sentinel. So Sentinel collects all of that data. Whether you are sitting in Microsoft, whether you're sitting outside of Microsoft in a third-party environment, it does not matter. We basically ingest all of that data into a single data lake, and then Sentinel runs over the top of that. So Sentinel can be your single pane of glass from a SIEM perspective for you to orchestrate and resolve any of your incident management that you have. So just from I suppose a use case perspective on a licensing side, so if you are a business standard user right now, you would be utilizing only the Office apps within Microsoft. And if you moved to Business Premium, you would then get the likes of endpoint protection. So you would get Defender for Business, you would get Defender for Office 365 Plan 1. That is the email, the mail filtering side of things. You'd get the Intune Plan 1 to manage those devices. And you would also get the identity piece from an Entra ID Plan 1 perspective. So Business Premium was designed for 300 seats or below to really cover every single aspect of those 6 blocks I covered right in the beginning to protect the entire stack within your organization. If you went to E5, and not necessarily only from E3, you could go from Business Premium to E5, for example. This is where you're going to get a very similar stack, but you're going to get more features. But the biggest one for me is that one right at the bottom there, where you start getting a credit allocation for Security Copilot for your organization. So for every licensed user of E5, you're going to get 0.4 SCUs, security compute units, per user per month within your environment. Now, 0.4 might sound like not a lot, but it really can be the difference between you running an agent across your conditional access policies. It can be the difference between you running an agent across all of your logs once a month, for example, to check for any phishing, to check for anything that is being exploited, depending on what you want to do from an identity or cloud perspective or agent perspective. So Microsoft's basically giving you that capability to use that credit against that and run those agents across your organization. The nice thing about it right now, as of today, is that when those credits run out, you are not going to be on board for overage or overusage. So it just basically stops working. It'll tell you that your capacity has been exhausted and it stops working. So it's pretty risk-free, but just keep in mind that if you do create a security Copilot workspace, then that overage can take over there. So just be very careful with that. Make sure that you understand the workspace and what's been assigned for that. But if you are an E5 user, I highly, highly recommend go play within Entra around the conditional access agent policy or agent, the conditional access agent. It's a very good agent to review your conditional access policies and logs, and also run an automated agent to check all of your logs across your Defender suite on a scheduled basis for that. So lastly from my side really is just around what we can consider over the next 12 months. If you are a Microsoft user, identity, or not even just a Microsoft user, if you are a user of cloud or IT in general, the identity posture is still key. Your identities have to be your first priority. If they are compromised, whoops. Sorry about that, team. If those are compromised, let me just, before he carries on, because he will carry on. I know him very well. Thank you. Cool. So your identities are really that first point in case of protection. In my environment that I manage, I go through my identity security posture every 3 months. I review it, I make sure I know what those action plans is. If we do get compromised, how we're going to move, what we're going to utilize, break loss accounts. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I have a plan for, and I review that every 3 months. I also review every 3 months, how are we triggering our multi-factor authentication? Are we using passkeys? Are we using passwords? What is the method that we're using? Are we using text? Are we using phone calls? Because those are legacy. We shouldn't be utilizing those. We should be focusing on trying to move to passkeys. So we really want to try and go as passwordless as possible. And this is only possible if we actually take the time to review these policies on a very frequent basis. If you are a Microsoft licensed user within Business Premium and above, consider turning on Defender for endpoints. The reason being is, even if you are utilizing a third party, Defender for endpoint runs really well with another third party. It runs in passive mode. So gone are the days where we used to not be able to install 2 antiviruses because they would clash with each other and utilize every single resource that we had. Defender can sit there in the background as a keep net. So in case something gets through, it'll be your second line of defense. It can run passively in that mode. And if it is part of your licensing SKU, then you may as well make use of it as well. Pilot, Copilot. So what I want to say there is really around the agents. The agents are coming thick and fast. If you go and have a look at how many people are creating agents in your organization, there is a study that was released a couple of weeks ago that says for every 1 person in your environment, there's going to be between 3 and 10 agents created. That's now. In 5 years' time, we're going to see a 20-to-1 ratio. All of these agents have access to data. All of these agents have an identity that we have to manage. So we really start to need to think about what that strategy looks like about managing the agents. If Defender is within your licensing, go turn on the Defender for agents or for AI. Make sure you have a policy applied to that and start figuring out how you want to manage those policies. And the last thing really is around the single pane of glass. Whether you have 1 product or 10 products, that single pane of glass is super important to get that quickest response going forward. So just something to consider going forward, and maybe have a chat with everyone today about how we're managing that single pane of glass from all the different telemetry data that we're getting. And with that, team, thank you so much for your time. I hope I was on time with regards to my 25 minutes that I had, but we're going to be around all day. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for listening, and yeah, I look forward to having some conversations with you. Thank you.